I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right, all right. Happy Sunday, guys, and welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I do want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there once a month for our monthly roundtable, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. And welcome back, guys. We have a very big show for you today. We're going to get started with our special guest first. We've been talking on this show before about public banking and the significance of that. So our guests today are going to do a pretty little deep dive into public banking and honestly why I think we need more public banks here in the United States. First and foremost, let me go ahead and show you that thumbnail so you can see what we are discussing tonight. Again, we have a big show tonight. I promise I will get everybody out on time for that Pats playoff game because I will be watching that as well. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing Erika Kirk is busted. This is a big one. Oh boy. So much stuff is coming out about Erika now, especially since people have decided to go back into her background and the way that she is being, I would say, behaving since Charlie Kirk's death has been rather suspicious. So we're going to get into new information there. We're also going to discuss, if people haven't heard about this while you were sleeping or doing something else, Donald Trump had a meeting with oil executives, and honestly, it did not go the way that I think he intended. This, of course, comes about after the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro. We're also going to discuss Candace Owens and apparently Tucker Carlson have been named by the Likud party. This is not a good thing, obviously, for them, but it appears there is some attack that is happening there. We're going to get into the details about all of that, ladies and gents, and what does that really mean? AOC back in the news again. She is facing backlash. Her and Zohran Mamdani are facing backlash because of the comments that they made recently about a recent protest outside of one of the synagogues. We're going to get into all of that. And finally, I know you guys have been asking for it, and I'm sorry it's been so delayed. We are finally going to do that part 2 about biblical Israel versus modern day Israel. And this also includes that connection with Pax Judaica. This is very important. And so we're diving into the Revelations portion today. So welcome to Sunday school, I guess. And last but not least, we also have our special guests who I do want to go ahead and bring in. Their names are Ellen Brown and Earl Stalin. Ellen Brown is the founder of the Public Banking Institute, and Earl Stalin is an advisor. Let's go ahead and bring them in. Hello, Ellen. Hello, Earl. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, Sabrina.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've talked about public banking on this show before, and I referenced the Bank of North Dakota, which, if I'm not sure if people are familiar, if it's your first time watching, North Dakota does have a public bank. It's called the Bank of North Dakota, and it's been around for a long, long time. We can get into that in a little bit. But Ellen, I want to start with you. You are the founder of the Public Banking Institute. Could you please explain to everyone what's the difference between a public bank and the banks that I think most of us are familiar with today?
A public bank is a bank owned by the people through their local government. So it would be a state-owned bank, a city-owned bank, a county-owned bank, a tribal bank. We actually have one provincial bank, which is the Bank of American Samoa. But we have no state-owned banks except the Bank of North Dakota, which is an excellent model, founded in 1919, very profitable, loved by their local bankers. It does a lot for the state. So what all do you want to hear about that?
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ellen. Earl, I'm going to pivot to you now. Can you tell everybody, why do you feel a public bank is better than the regular banks that we deal with today? What is that big? Ellen said to everybody that it is owned by the public, but what does that really mean?
Well, first of all, take the state of North Dakota or Massachusetts. North Dakota puts all its deposits that Massachusetts and other states currently put in the major banks like Chase or Wells Fargo, Bank of America. Instead, they put it in their own bank, and they invest that money by using it as a base to make loans only within their state, locally, to benefit productive growth within that state. Currently, when that money is in Chase or these other big banks, they invest most of it out of state, and a lot of it is not productive. It pumps up real estate, it creates bubbles and recessions. They put it in into hedge funds and things like that. They put it into stocks and commodities. None of this benefits the economy of the local state. In fact, when you create bubbles, you lead to recessions inevitably, eventually. And North Dakota, by having money in its own bank, in 2008, and they make loans jointly rather than directly. They make loans jointly with the local banks and credit unions that fund medium and small businesses in the state. And that's where the real production is. That's where the growth is. That's where the jobs are. And in 2008, when all the other states with their big private banks dominating the economy decreased their lending and caused a big recession, North Dakota increased its lending enough to offset the decline and had no recession. And they did that in partnership with the local banks, the community banks, and credit unions that they make these loans jointly with. So the entire economy was kept humming along. And they actually had record profit each year during the Great Recession and no recession in that state. It's a completely viable model, and it's completely the opposite in terms of long-term growth, profitability, prosperity, and stability.
This is the important part I wanted people to hear, like during that 2008 housing crisis, how North Dakota was still able to sustain itself. Like they did have a public bank. I want to pass to you, Ellen, here. I see this coming up quite a bit in the chat. What about credit unions? This is a good question. Foxy says credit unions aren't private, aren't they?
Credit unions are owned by their members, but their members are just the individuals who use the customers of the bank, whereas this is owned by everybody, all the taxpayers in a city, county, etc. I mean, you could actually have a federal public bank, and a number of countries do. China particularly has 3 of them. But, the best we've got is the state-owned bank, which is excellent. One thing I want to add to what Earl said is that most people think that our money is created by the government. You know, that's what you're taught in school. You see your dollar bills and your coins, and the coins have pictures of presidents on them, and the dollar bill says Federal Reserve at the top. But almost all of our money is created by banks when they make loans. It's called the magical money tree or whatever. We just heard an excellent presentation by the president of the Bank of North Dakota. He gave a presentation in New Mexico, and he actually called it the magical money machine or magical something. Anyway, so the point is that, and he pointed out that they can take $1 of deposits from the Bank of North, or from the state of North Dakota, and they can leverage that into $5 to up to $10 in loans. So they literally create $10 more money that goes out into their local economy than they would have had if they had just spent that dollar directly. I don't know if you're following that. Okay, so most states, as Earl points out, put their money in JP Morgan, et cetera. And those banks are not doing productive loans. But the Bank of North Dakota has a mandate to serve the public. Most of their loans are for agriculture or energy, which are their dominant industries. I think they had a $400 million, they set aside $400 million for agriculture this year, and they have a huge disaster relief program. They just do excellent things for their local economy. But what they have done is actually magnified the amount of public money that's out there to do public benefit things. And they partner with their local bank. So the local bank comes to them with a loan, which the local bank wants help with, needs help with capitalization. So then the Bank of North Dakota might buy down half of it. They might buy down 80 or 90% of the loan, and they might give a lower interest rate than the original bank did. The original bank continues to be the primary bank on the loan. They deal with the customer, et cetera, but they get all this help from the Bank of North Dakota. So the Bank of North Dakota acts as sort of a mini Fed for the state. I mean, they've actually been called a mini Fed for the states. So they help with capitalization, liquidity, regulation, et cetera.
Okay, so this is interesting because I don't know if everyone else knows this either. I had two friends from high school that moved to North Dakota for work, just strictly for jobs. And both of them told me that North Dakota has more jobs than people. And I'm starting to wonder, is this part of the reason is because of the public bank? Like they said that like it's impossible to be unemployed in North Dakota. And I feel like it's this little secret that a lot of people don't know about. Earl?
You're muted.
I think you have to unmute. Yeah.
Yeah. Public banks primarily fund small businesses and medium-sized businesses. And that's where most new jobs are created, is in those businesses. These are local businesses, restaurants, all the businesses, hair cutting, all that are going out of business when we have a recession, including like the COVID recession and the current problems we've had. Those businesses are very vulnerable, but when they're funded by a public bank, which public banks specialize in that, they're creating new jobs locally. The major banks that hold our public deposits in most states except North Dakota prefer to lend to large corporations. They find that more profitable for them. That also means that loans, for example, to defense contractors. They make a lot of money from funding war. They like to fund, Wells Fargo is one of the biggest lenders, if not the biggest lender for private prisons that incentivizes no rehabilitation and sending people back again and again to prison because they're not rehabilitated. Same thing with fossil fuels. Profitable, but causes a lot of externalized damage. That's what they prefer to fund. And public banks are can be extremely successful in building a local economy with small and medium-sized businesses where the jobs are. And I want to add to what Ellen mentioned about banks creating most of our money. They actually, in this country, create 95 to 97% of our money. In North Dakota, that's reversed, where the public bank, through joint loans with community banks and credit unions, are creating a large part of the money in North Dakota. That's why they have more jobs. It's why they have fewer homeless. It's why they have a healthier population, and they have a lot less debt there than the average around the country. And they've had no bank failures there for many years. They support the entire banking system by their joint loans with them and helping them out when there's a crisis. They'll buy up stress loans from the local banks to keep them strong and in the lending process and keeping the economy going.
We can all learn a lot from North Dakota. And this is what I'm trying to tell people, guys, we can have the future that we want. Like, there's ways to go about it. And I think public banking is one of those things that is not discussed as much as it should be. So both of you are part of the Public Banking Institute. And I want to hear a little more about this. Like, you guys can follow them on their website. I know they have workshops. A friend of the show, Roger Meadows, has attended these workshops. Public Banks 101, legislation, reports and plans, local groups. Like, this is what I'm talking about. And what I like about it is that you call it a movement. Join the growing movement to create banks that are owned by and benefit the people. This is really what we need, guys. I think a lot of times, I don't know how you guys are engaged politically, but a lot of times people are looking to politicians for the answers. And I'm trying to tell people, let's focus on some of these things that we can do ourselves. Of course, you may need them to pass some type of legislation in some of these ventures. But the reality is, like, I don't hear politicians talking about public banks. Like, I hear podcasters like Richard Wolff talking about public banking. And so I think that this is something that is incredibly overlooked. Ellen, can you tell us a little bit more about the Public Banking Institute, why you decided to found this particular institute? And also, if you could answer for everyone, why don't we have more public banks like the Bank of North Dakota?
Thanks. I wrote a book called Web of Debt that was published in 2007. And it was basically about our American monetary system and how originally the colonies issued their own money directly. And of course, Abraham Lincoln did the same thing, issued greenbacks, issued money directly, but that we had lost that power to the banks and that the banks were now creating our money. So that was what that book was about. And then in that summer, I heard that there was one state that actually had its own bank. And I thought, well, they've solved the problem that if banks are going to be creating our money, we, the people, should own the banks. And that would still make it be public money. And so I started writing about that, and I got more email than I could handle. So we formed a public banking Google group. And then that eventually evolved into the Public Banking Institute. But one thing that really kicked off, what you're talking about movements, one big movement that kicked it off, first there was the Move Your Money movement. Well, this is after, this is right after the 2007, 2008 collapse of the banking system. So people were moving their money individually out of Wall Street banks into local banks, but there was no place for states to move their money because there was no states or cities, because there was no local bank that was big enough to handle their business. So then we had the Occupy Wall Street movement. The Public Banking Institute was founded in 2011, and that was also the year of the Zuccotti Park Occupy Wall Street event that kicked off Occupy Wall Street. Anyway, between those two movements, we got that gave us a lot of momentum for public banks. It legitimated, or it gave us a reason why we need to form our own state-owned, city-owned, whatever, locally owned banks. And it took off from there. So we've had like over 50 bills have been filed for state and local banks. But we still don't have any that have duplicated the Bank of North Dakota. We're hoping that New Mexico might be the next. But anyway, the one reason obviously is pushback from big banks. And another reason is just that people don't really understand the issue. I mean, people don't understand where their money is coming from. And then a third reason, I think, is that when things are going along well, politicians don't want to rock the boat. You know, it's kind of a radical change to have your own bank. And but now things aren't going so well. So, I mean, not that I'm hoping for a great financial crash, but we could be on the edge of another crisis. And for me personally, it's worth it just to get ideas out there so that when we do have a crash, people are looking around and they say, well, what about that public banking idea? So anyway, Earl can add to that.
Yeah, I'd like to add one reason why the public banking movement has not gotten banks actually enacted during our efforts that began in about 2011 is that a mistake was made. For example, when the California bill was passed in 2019, authorizing public banks at the local level, they required those banks to be a member of the FDIC. North Dakota is not a member of the FDIC, has never been a member of it. They have no need for it at all. FDIC insurance only covers $250,000 per account. A public bank will have an account of maybe $100 million minimum. It's utterly worthless. And the FDIC has a rule called capital adequacy that might prevent the bank from doing what North Dakota's bank did in 2008, increasing its lending enough to offset the recession. Another rule that the California bill agreed to, which makes sense for private banks that accept retail deposits, was to require 100% collateral. That means having a minimum of $100 million in the background just sitting there to cover its deposits. And North Dakota has never had that, has never needed it, because they're the main depositor in the bank, and they're not allowed to withdraw their funds from the bank except to cover their routine state expenses. So you can't have a run on the bank, which is what FDIC insurance was designed to stop. It's what the collateral rule of 100% collateral was designed to stop. If you can't have a run on the bank, you don't need that. That's why North Dakota has never required it. And instead, the state in its statute guarantees the deposits of the bank. And that's perfectly adequate. And the other reason for this, there are two ways in which a public bank is safer and more profitable than the private banks regulated by state banking boards. One is the productive lending I mentioned, where all their loans are virtually in-state and for things that actually produce things that earn money and build an economy. Whereas private banks under state bank regulations are not prohibited from investing in existing real estate that pumps up real estate prices, makes real estate unaffordable, makes rents unaffordable, and creates bubbles and recessions, as I mentioned earlier. Same thing with stocks and creating stock crashes. That's what happened in 1929 with the Great Depression. In addition, a public bank can fund its own state or government. And by doing that, if it does it at the start, it can be profitable the very first year. It doesn't have to wait 3 years to make a profit like private banks do. And also, it can and should, like North Dakota did, transfer all the deposits of that state that were then in private banks into the public bank. And if it does that, it has an additional source to be able to fund loans of maybe 30% of all those deposits can be used to help fund loans. So a public bank done the way North Dakota does is a completely safe model. And if it's followed, we don't need these rules that about collateral FDIC that are simply poison pills. Because where's a government going to come up with an extra $100 million? We've run into that over and over. They can't do it. But if they started their bank, say with bonds like North Dakota did, or revenue bonds, it's not going to cost the bank anything, and it has an immediate source of enough capital to run the bank. And as long as these rules are run the way North Dakota did, you're going to have a successful bank. And it's because legislatures haven't been familiar enough with these differences between a public bank and a private bank that it hasn't gotten done. And we need to educate legislators, finance directors, governors that this is how you do it. And it's not difficult. It's a guaranteed profitable enterprise that builds a really strong economy.
Yeah. This is so important for people to understand. And I have to say this again, if you look at what North Dakota has done, if you look at the Bank of North Dakota, their economy is a lot different than the one that I live in here in Massachusetts. There's a reason why they have more jobs than people. There's a reason why they don't have the unemployment rate that we have. A lot of the things that we complain about on the show, the reason why I tell you to follow the money is because a lot of times it goes right back to the central banks. So when you follow that path, you'll see that's where all of our, at least I think most of our issues, it all leads back to the banking system. Ellen, how can people get involved with the Public Banking Institute?
So our website is publicbankinginstitute.org. And as you pointed out, there are many things many resources there. Of course, we'd love to have we have monthly presentations that for people to ask questions, etc. And if they wanted to sign up with their local Public Banking Institute group, we can point them to, members to associate with. So thank you for asking.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, guys, go check it out. Publicbankinginstitute.org. If you want to get involved, you should start with their website first. You can attend these presentations that they have as well. There could be a public banking, organization in your state, in your city, and you may just not know. So Ellen and Earl, thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, ladies and gents, that was Earl Stalin and Ellen Brown. Again, they're part of the Public Banking Institute. Check out their website, check them out, attend one of their presentations if you can. Again, I think that's something we need to talk about a lot more. And I know I've talked about it on this show, but I just hear a lot of complaints about the money and where the money's going. And at the end of the day, I think we need to stop relying on these central banks. And we really need to start talking about establishing more public banks in this country, similar to the Bank of North Dakota. I think that's where we're really going to have to hammer the nail. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have more stories to discuss with you. First and foremost, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Bam. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate. Sabinators are pretty cool. And I think we all love the Sabsters. Don't we all love them? Let's not forget about those Sabbies. They're pretty cool as well. And last but least, we have members. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the ticker there. For those who are new and they're like, who are those people? Who are those names at the bottom of the screen? Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate you. Tonight's theme is deception is a hell of a drug. It really is. We're We're going to get started with this first story here about that deception. If you haven't done so, do me a solid, can you? And smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And let's keep it moving and grooving, fam. All right, let's get into the story about the Donald Trump oil meeting that happened. So while we were busy doing other things, not too long after Donald Trump kidnaps Maduro, Donald Trump had a meeting with oil executives. And I think you need to see how this went, because I don't think that this went the way that Donald Trump wanted it to. The response from these oil executives was not favorable. It appears they don't really seem to be interested in oil in Venezuela. Imagine that. Let's go ahead and get into it. So the first clip here, this is interesting. This is something a lot of people are pointing to. Tucker Carlson was at this oil executive meeting, and people are like, how did Tucker Carlson get there? Laura Loomer is crashing out online and is like, what the hell, right? But he's here. Check this out. Right here. So that's Tucker Carlson right there. And people have seen this video. It's all over online, and people are like, why is he there? He was probably there to report, probably there as a journalist. I don't know. He'll probably report back on this at some point. But I think people like Laura Loomer were upset because he was invited and she wasn't. It also goes to show you that as much as, Tucker Carlson has been criticizing Israel and also has spoken out against the ICE agents recently, also speaking out about what happened just recently in Venezuela, Tucker Carlson is still able to be invited into this Trump administration, at least into that orbit. So he hasn't completely broken that circle, right? So like, obviously, someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene would not be invited because Trump called her a traitor. So it appears that I think Tucker Carlson hasn't gone at Trump hard enough yet for him to be uninvited to these types of things here. Let's continue on. I'm going to mute it because of the music. Trump walks past him, and all these oil executives here, all these money grubbing, rich people who just want to take oil and just want to make a lot of money. You can see he makes his way all the way around the table there. Now, another thing that was interesting about this, the Halliburton executive, Donald Trump is questioning them about why they left Venezuela. And this part is hilarious. Check this out.
Couldn't express gratitude more so for the opportunity to return to Venezuela under the stability that I know that this team and your team are able to deliver. And so
when did you leave?
Huh?
When did you leave Venezuela?
As a company, we left under the sanctions in 2019. So we had intended to stay, and then when the sanctions went into place, we were required to leave.
So 2019, that was Trump's first term. That would have been under the Trump administration. And so you have an oil executive here who's explaining, well, the reason why we left Venezuela is because of the sanctions. Who put the sanctions there? Obviously, the Trump administration. Every administration that I can remember has had these sanctions against Venezuela, but it's just kind of funny that it happened under his administration. And Donald Trump is asking, why did you leave? It was an awkward meeting. Awkward in the sense that Donald Trump was doing some weird things. At one point, he decides to just stand up and walk towards the window to look at the renovations on the ballroom. I mean, who does this at this type of meeting? The real Thelma Johnson said, my second husband started doing stuff like this near his end. And people are wondering, is this a sign of dementia? Check this out.
Well, I got to look at this myself. Wow. What a view. This is the door to the bar.
Yeah. Yeah, Gusa said Trump is in the early stages of dementia. This is what people have been pointing out. Those that have experience with this. It's just an awkward time to do something like that, obviously. But here's the big to do, right? Apparently, they're not really feeling this that much. Let's go ahead and get into this article here. Trump seeks 100 billion for Venezuela oil, but Exxon boss says country uninvestable. Dun, dun, dun. I'm telling you guys, it's a laugh. Donald Trump has asked for at least 100 billion in oil industry spending for Venezuela, but received a lukewarm response at the White House as one executive warned the South American country was currently uninvestable. Bosses of the biggest U.S. oil firms who attended the meeting acknowledged that Venezuela, sitting on vast energy reserves, represented an enticing opportunity. But they said significant changes would be needed to make the region an attractive investment. No major financial commitments were immediately forthcoming. Dun, dun, dun. So you see, folks, what did I tell you? And we can just put all the pieces together, right? I think some people who are still defending Trump at this point it's sad, it's pathetic. But let's just add up the timeline here. Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, they start bombing boats in the Caribbean. They say that these boats are carrying drugs from Venezuela to take them into the United States. The math wasn't mathing because those boats would have to stop multiple times to get gas, even to make it all this way. They killed people, then denied that, we don't know, that type of thing. Probably still attacking boats in the Caribbean as we speak at this moment. Next thing you know, Donald Trump makes threats to Nicolas Maduro and says that we are going to come after you if you don't step aside, if you don't resign. Later on, Nicolas Maduro says that he is open to meeting with the United States, to having conversation. And then bam, just like that, Trump's like, nope, no conversation. They go in, they kidnap Maduro and his wife, who, by the way, according to the photos from the courtroom, his wife had a black eye. So they were beaten, they were dragged, etc. His wife has nothing to do with this, by the way, but here we are. And there seemed to be some confusion here. Some of the people that were obviously against what Israel was doing when it came to Venezuela believed and fell for Donald Trump's lies and his rhetoric that this is going to be great for the United States. Never mind the fact that you were trying to implement some type of regime change there in Venezuela, which we know never works out great for the people who are there. And then on top of that, openly admitting that they want the oil, they want the resources. And now you have this meeting with these oil executives. So it was never about the people of Venezuela. It's about the money. It's about the oil. And it's also about the fact that, and I mark this on your calendar at some point, Israel is going to attack Iran again with the help of the United States, probably sometime this year. That is going to obviously hurt the oil issue for the U.S. because Iran does have a lot of oil as well. It will cause problems with the U.S. trying to get oil there in the Middle East. So then ultimately what will end up happening is that they could say, hey, we got this oil in Venezuela now, so we don't have to worry about Iran. So put all the pieces together. And now these executives say, we're not really interested. So Trump has a problem. Trump has a problem. All these policies that you see him doing, for the most part, are to enrich himself and his rich friends. And here we are. It goes on to say here, Trump has said he will unleash the South American nation's oil after U.S. forces seized its leader, Maduro, on January 3rd. One of the things the U.S. gets out of this will be even lower energy prices, Trump said in Friday's meeting at the White House. But the oil boss's presence expressed caution. Fast forward to Exxon. Exxon's chief, Darren Woods, said, we have had our assets seized there twice. And so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen and what is currently the state. Today, it's uninvestable. So that's where they're at right now, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not looking good for Donald Trump. So, you know, something I've noticed during this term of Donald Trump, he seems to be much more careless than he was during his first term, just making rash decisions that obviously have a tremendous impact on people, on resources, without thinking about what is going to come next. Just saying, I'm going to do all these things, but not really having a plan. Not to say he didn't have irrational behavior during his first term, but this time around, I swear to God, I think it is 10 times worse. And so here we are. Now they got Nicolas Maduro in jail, awaiting trial. They can't prove that any fentanyl came from Venezuela because it's not even produced there. So then in the indictment, they had to change it to cocaine. And then you go through the research and you find out that, yeah, there's some cocaine that is produced in Venezuela, but most of that is actually produced in Colombia and South America. And that even the cocaine that's been leaving from Venezuela, the little that there is, actually ended up going to Europe, not the United States. So I say pay attention to this trial, because at the end of the day, it's going to tell you whether or not they really have a case. Like, I don't think they really do. But when we look at the money, we see what this is really all about. Now, one of these investors that I think people need to dive into is Paul Singer. He's a pro-Israel billionaire and a mega donor that's about to make a killing off of Venezuela's oil. Let's go ahead and get into this, and shout out to Mint Press News for this one.
Donald Trump just handed Venezuela's oil to Paul Singer, a pro-Israel billionaire mega donor cashing in on regime change. And that handoff happened through Citgo, Venezuela's US-based oil refinery and gas distribution company, and its most valuable overseas asset. In November of 2025, just weeks before the Trump administration removed and kidnapped Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, Singer's hedge fund, Elliott Investment Management, bought Citgo in a court-ordered fire sale for $5.9 billion, despite its real value at $11 to $18 billion. This was a public payoff, and that's because Paul Singer is one of the most powerful political financiers in the United States. Singer isn't just a hedge fund boss. He's a hardline foreign policy hawk and one of the most influential pro-Israel mega donors shaping U.S. foreign policy.
And so it always goes back to one or two things: Israel and the banks, the money. So do you see this? This is what I warn people about. This isn't just about Trump saying we want the oil. This is also to help Israel. There was a map, and I showed you guys last time. I don't have it with me this time, but there was a map where I showed you how Israel has basically infiltrated all the coastal South American countries, and Brazil still for the taking. And then you see what's happening in Venezuela. They are spreading Zionism throughout South America. And if you have not seen my biblical Israel versus modern day Israel video, make sure you watch that before you get into the part two. Because the part two I'm going to discuss today, we'll get into the geopolitics of it all and where this ends up at the end of the day. Because I think this is really important.
Already run this playbook successfully in Argentina, where his hedge fund amassed sovereign debt claims and used them to exert political pressure, ultimately reshaping national economic policy in his favor and in the favor of Israel. Singer is a major funder of the Republican Jewish Coalition and the Foreign Policy Initiative. He also founded Startup Nation Central, which works closely with veterans of Unit 8200, Israel's elite cyber intelligence unit, helping channel U.S. tech investments into Israel's surveillance and AI sector. And he also organized the outsourcing of American tech companies and their research hubs for Silicon Valley tech giants like Google, Microsoft, Palantir, Intel, PayPal, Dell, and others to be outsourced to Israel's tech industry.
That is very important. The tech industry also making its way over to Israel. Remember what I told you about AI in Israel? So Israel isn't just focused on expanding and making this greater Israel, region. They're not just focused on increasing and strengthening their alliance with the United States and trying to obviously infiltrate other countries throughout the world. Israel is investing more in technology. And this will all make sense when we get to part two of the biblical Israel versus the modern day Israel. That's why I have to tell you guys the rapid pace that Donald Trump has been moving for Israel, the rapid speed that he is moving in reference to geopolitics, everybody needs to pay attention. And then you see a decline that's happening there with him. So they're setting up all the pieces. They got the oil execs there. So you guys can see what's really happening. And at the end of the day, what do we have? Right? So deception is a hell of a drug. Because for people sitting back thinking Donald Trump did this, get this oil from Venezuela to help us. No, 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 no. This is nothing about us. And at some point, all of this is going to be exposed. I would say more obviously. The idea is to put the power in Israel. The idea is not to increase the power here in the United States. Eventually, that is the end game. The tech industry, AI, and the oil. And Israel can't have that if all those other countries remain doing what they're doing now. And that's why they want them to go. So don't be deceived. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Bom, 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 bom. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Ellen, I got Sabby your book, Their Public Banking Solution from Austerity to Prosperity, for her birthday a couple years ago. Yes, you did. Thank you, Kevin. Banks create money when they make a loan, essentially an IOU. This is MMT 101. Yes, public banks are a great idea. So is postal banking. Yes, it is. Thank you, Measured Man. Hello. I keep getting unsubscribed to the channel. Thank you, Sabby Sabs, for all your hard work. My alerts are gone. Yeah, the alert thing, the unsubscribe thing happens with YouTube. But the alert thing, from what I understand, I think it matters if you're using an Android or an iPhone. This is what I've noticed. Like for those of like when I had an Android, I wasn't getting alerts. Now that I have an iPhone, I am getting alerts. So it seems to be the issue, but you guys know how YouTube is. But thank you for letting me know. Thank you, Joel. You need to look at digital locks. Thank you, Joel. I will do that. Thank you, HH. Great work, Sabby. Much love to you, my dear, for all you do. And thank you, Ben. How long does unaliving the driver prevent you from getting hit? I don't know, Ben. Thank you, Wasim. Apparently, Argentinians are saying that the Israelis are starting the Patagonian fires to steal and buy land for cheap due to a video where an Argentinian confronted them starting one. Well, I tell you, it's all over the place, right? Thank you, Cod, Sabby, Pax Judaica. Judaica. Thank you. Thank you. We're about to go ahead and get into that right now. Thank you, Richard. Love your show. Hey, you're giving us a glimpse behind the curtain at the future that we want. Thank you. All right. Let's go ahead and dive into the next one. If you have not seen Biblical Israel versus Modern Day Israel on my channel, it's one of my deep dives. Go into my deep dive section playlist. Watch that at some point after you see this. This is part 2. We are now entering into Revelations. I would say the scary part of the Bible. And what we are going to do is we are going to make the connection between what is happening geopolitically right now, what is predicted to happen with geopolitics, and how this all ties in to biblical Israel versus modern day Israel. So if you saw that part, then you know that what we explained is that when in the Bible, when Jesus said, I shall call you Israel, he was speaking to Jacob, right? So Jacob, person in the Bible, that's who he was speaking to. If you also saw that part, you know, one of the questions that I had is that what happened to those missing books from the Bible? How do we know that you have all the books that are in the Bible? How do you know that we're not being manipulated in some way, shape, or form in order to pursue and continue this idea of this greater Israel project? How do we know that this hasn't been the case for all time? And I said, if that's the case, then you're looking at the biggest psyop ever played in the world, in my opinion. There was a professor recently, Professor Jing. He obviously must have been thinking the same thing I'm thinking, but he breaks this down in such a way that I think people really need to see to fully understand when we talk about the book of Revelations. Revelations is the end times for those who are not aware. I grew up in the church. I had many criticisms, of the church, and I have questions. I still have questions to this day. But Revelations is the book where we get into Armageddon. We talk about, the rapture. We talk about the 7 years of tribulation, the 7 years of peace, and the Antichrist, etc. So what we are going to do is we're going to start with the geopolitics part first, so you can see the map. And then we're going to lead right into Revelations. Again, shout out to Professor Jing. This video, at least a clip of it, was going viral everywhere on social media. He did this presentation for his students. Listen to what he says. Everyone pay attention.
Is that Europe is planning to go to war with Russia. Okay? Europe is about to go to war with Russia, okay? At the same time, you have a lot of immigrants in Europe. And this is going to create civil wars in Europe, okay? Civil war. So you have both war with Russia as well as civil war. So Europe is kind of screwed, okay? America has the same situation where the left-right divide is so polarized that eventually they'll go to war. If you read the news, you may have heard about the shootings at Brown University, as well as this MIT physicists who were shot, okay? So random violence will be more and more common in the United States. And you can argue that's all deliberate because the idea is this. Let's just say you have a jar. You put red ants in the jar and black ants in a jar. They get along fine. But you take the jar and you just shake it up, and now they're at war with each other, okay? That's what's happening, where the left and right, they really don't like each other. They don't talk to each other, and they refuse to engage in debate with each other.
And that is by design. And notice what he said about all the chaotic incidents that are happening here in the US back to back to back. This is what I was telling you guys last stream when I said they want chaos. See, chaos is key. It's actually crucial if you believe in the end times prophecy, if you believe in this greater Israel project, that chaos must happen in order to lead to some type of peace. I'll explain that a little bit later. Let's continue.
But they're not going to fight each other unless there's violence, in which case the tribal mentality takes over and they start killing each other, okay? So we can expect civil war in the United States. Then you're going to have the Americans start to attack Venezuela and possibly other countries in South America. So America is in for a bad time, okay? China, yeah, I mean, Japan and China and India, they're all going to have conflicts with each other. But also what we should expect is that America starts to embargo China, meaning America uses its sea power to block China from accessing resources from overseas. And China imports most of its oil and a lot of its food. So if there's a blockade of China, you can expect the Chinese economy to really suffer, okay?
Now think about this. What is happening right now? Isn't the U.S. really trying to back Taiwan so that Taiwan can have this conflict with China? For those who are not aware, there was this doctrine that was established a long time ago called One China. So that would mean that China and Taiwan are one. So Taiwan is part of China, China is part of Taiwan. But apparently they're saying that, Taiwan does want some independence and the U.S. backs Taiwan. Now pay attention to what is happening. From what I understand, from what I'm hearing from overseas, is that there are U.S., ships all over there by Taiwan. So let's go on a little bit more.
All right. And then what we can expect to happen is America at some point will go to war with Iran. And this will destroy both countries. Okay? Iran will not lose this war, but it won't win this war either, because America is just going to bomb the crap out of Iran. It's going to send Iran back decades.
I think he is correct about this. This is why I'm telling everybody, Donald Trump is making the moves to make all this happen. Now, I think regardless who was president, whether it was a Democrat or Republican, this was inevitable. One of the things that Brian Berlatek has explained so well is that the foreign policy decisions have already been made. And if you look at the Brookings Institute report, you can see this for yourself if you look them up online. So the reality is, as I told you, the president don't really run shit. The president don't really run the country. They're just another puppet. Donald Trump is in a unique position because he's not just the president, he's also a billionaire. So he's up there with the elites and at the same time holding public office. That's a dangerous position, right? So he can be very lethal. But the reality is, this is what they want. They're already moving in that direction. Why do you think they're talking about the Iran protests so much? Donald Trump put out the statement and said, we need to go liberate and help the people of Iran. I told you, watch that word liberate. That means regime change. Now, regardless of how you feel about the regime in Iran, that is not our concern. That is their concern, right? So the U.S. wants to come in. They'll use the protests as an excuse, which a lot of these protests have infiltrators anyway, CIA, Mossad, to start this type of color revolution. The U.S. uses that as an excuse. They go in, they say, see, we're here to liberate the people. Then he implements regime change. Iran will suffer a terrible fate if that regime change happens by the hands of the West, just like people in Afghanistan did and Iraq. And you see what's happening right now in Syria. So pay attention because they're already moving in that direction. Donald Trump was the one that moved the capital. Remember, he moved the capital in Jerusalem, setting the stage for the biblical end times.
But America will lose this war, but this is important because if America loses this war, it's forced out of the Middle East. And once it's forced out of the Middle East, all its military assets goes to Israel, which creates the Pax Judaica. Yeah, does that make sense, guys? That's the plan. Okay, now you have Pax Judaica.
Pax Judaica. This is the part you need to pay attention to right here. All right. So there will be war between the U.S. and Iran, Israel and Iran. And what he is predicting is that neither side is really going to win. We know Iran is very powerful. Let's not pretend like they're not, right? But it is going to weaken both. Then what happens to Israel? Watch this.
And what Pax Judaica will do is start to control the world. Because through chaos and conflict, Pax Judaica can make a lot of money, right? Because Pax Judaica, what's going to happen is that you have these technology companies like Google, they're going to move over to Pax Judaica and build a global surveillance state.
What did I tell you about the tech bros? Anybody notice that a lot of the tech CEOs are pro-Israel? Gee, I wonder why. Sergey Brin, David Sachs. Everybody notice a lot of these guys are pro-Israel? Yeah, there's a reason for that. So this is what I was saying about Palantir, the surveillance state, AI increasing in Israel, Israel increasing technology. This is not a coincidence. This is all on purpose. Once you start to see these companies move over to Israel and invest more there, you need to be prepared. Because yes, Israel is increasing their surveillance state. They made it very publicly. They tell you they spy on us and we spy on them. I mean, it's not like that is a secret. Why do you think you hear Mike Huckabee saying it out loud that we have to support Israel because of biblical reasons? Why do you think Ted Cruz is saying it out loud? We must do it because the Bible tells us to. By the way, all of these people know this. And I don't sit here today saying that I honestly do not believe that not one politician in DC doesn't know what the end game is. I think they all know. And why do I think that? Because it was Cynthia McKinney who made it very clear that the moment that she was sworn into Congress, one of the things that they said to her is that you have to stand by and be pro-Israel. You got to stand by Israel. You have to have this alliance with Israel. They all know. That's why even some of the ones that have sympathy for the Palestinian people, that's why even they only go so far with their rhetoric. Ultimately, they know that Democrat leadership, Republican leadership, And then who's above them? Whoever is in the White House, regardless of the party, who's above them? Remember, we had that pyramid, the billionaires and the central banks. So we all know when I say deep state, that's who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a millionaire. I'm talking about the people that have that 0.0.1%. I'm talking about the billionaires. I'm talking about the central banks, the people that none of us can touch. That's where the real power lies. The politicians are just puppets. They're basically the spokesman, but they're not the people that are pulling the strings. Let's continue a little bit more in here.
You have civil wars, you need AI to control people. If you're going to war with Russia, you need weapons, okay? But you also need financing as well. So you can expect a lot of banks to move to Israel, and it's possible Israel becomes now the global reserve currency because everyone is trading with Israel. If you're Russia, you need to trade you need to trade your resources, right? Oil, energy, and grain, okay? So Russia controls a third of the world's carbohydrates. Guess what, guys? Israel controls Africa. So what will happen is that Russia and other countries will sign a trade agreement with Israel, and Israel becomes the center of global trade.
There it is.
Does that make sense? So this is how Pax Judaica will profit. And
stop here for a second where he says profit. So Pax Judaica, which basically means peace, like peace in Israel. What you have to understand, when you hear Netanyahu and the rest of his cronies say they do want peace, they're not talking about the peace that we're talking about. When we say we want peace, we want Palestinian people to be free. We want them to have self-liberation. We want them to have, like, whether it's their own state. We just don't want them to be caged in, and we want Israel to stop attacking them and leave them the hell alone. We want them to be able to have their land back. Like, that's what we mean when we say we want peace. When Israel says they want peace, what they're talking about is this. Their idea of peace is them being at the center of global trade and intelligence technology, them having major control in the Middle East and all the other, what is left of the Muslim and Arab countries at that point in time, everyone bending the knee to Israel. Their idea of peace is them being in power and you responding and answering to them. That's what they're talking about. Now we get to the biblical part.
remember that Israel has the world's best intelligence agency, the Mossad. And what they can do is go around the world and create as much chaos as possible. Okay?
Yep.
So while the world is burning, Israel, Pax Judaica, is profiting. And that's what the future looks like for the next 10, 20 years. And this will, of course, lead to the rise of the Antichrist.
There it is. The Antichrist.
Who will take control of Pax Judaica and force the world to eventually attack Israel in something called the War of Gog and Magog. And this will, of course, lead to the second coming of Jesus. So that's a grand...
Stop here. Now, there are disagreements about the Antichrist. You know, some people think the Antichrist will be an actual person. Some people think the Antichrist could be a group of people. But it also could be that the Antichrist could just describe the state of the world at that point in time. Again, like Revelations, it explains that there's supposed to be 7 years of tribulation. We're talking about famine, chaos, unstoppable, uncontrollable wars. But then there will be 7 years of peace. 7 years of peace through the Antichrist first. And then after those years of peace, there's going to be just trial and tribulation. And then this is supposed to be at the point where Jesus, comes back riding on a white horse. You guys know the story if you went to, church, riding on a white horse to stop all of this. Now, according to the Bible, if you are part of the rapture, so if the rapture happens, which the rapture means that these are people who believe and follow Jesus Christ. They would be taken up to heaven. They would miss all of this. So according to the Bible, they would not be present on earth when these trials and tribulations began. But for everyone else who doesn't believe, they would be here, and it essentially would be hell on earth, is what it talks about. So, and that's if you believe in this way. But this whole thing about the biblical end times, this is what I was talking about. Whereas Israel, we will be at the center. It will be the center of everything, and all the power, whether it's technology, whether it's AI, whether it's finance, all the power will be centered there. And pay attention to something else. Do you guys notice how our country, I keep telling you, we're not really investing in our own country. We're not really investing in our own infrastructure the way that we should be when you compare it to other countries and stuff like that. But we're investing in Israel. Like, everyone doesn't have healthcare here, but everyone has healthcare in Israel. We don't have free public universities here, but they can go to school for free. And so do you see what I'm saying? Israel is very tiny now, but that is not the goal. The goal is to expand and to create what they call the promised land. And I think we're going to get to that part in just a second. Let me come up here. Yes, the promised land.
Promised land. This is the Greater Israel Project. Okay, this is what Yahweh promised to Abraham in the Bible. As you can see, it's pretty huge. It's the entire Middle East. It extends from the Nile to the Euphrates in Iraq. Okay, it's a huge area. And if you say the Israelis want to achieve the Greater Israel Project.
One problem here. Let me go back to this map. There is something I need to show you. On this map, let me get them back to it here.
All right, guys, the promised land.
On this map, you know what's included in Greater Israel? Jordan, Baghdad. Here we have part of Africa. Remember I told you they're going to take part of Africa? I think this is part of Saudi Arabia, because that's not all of Saudi Arabia. Of course, there's Syria. See how they've basically taken all of this? Yeah. Now, wait till we get to the IDF soldier badge.
This is the Greater Israel Project. Okay, this is what Yahweh promised to Abraham in the Bible. As you can see, it's pretty huge. It's the entire Middle East. It extends from the Nile to the Euphrates in Iraq. Okay, it's a huge area. And if you say the Israelis want to achieve the Greater Israel Project, they call you a conspiracy theorist. Like, we don't want that, okay? But explain two things to me. First of all, why is the Greater Israel map on a chevron of an IDF soldier, okay? These are soldiers, Israeli soldiers, and they wear the insignia of the Greater Israel Project, okay?
So, and anyone saying that the Greater Israel Project is a myth is obviously not paying attention, because Benjamin Netanyahu has unveiled it right in front of Congress. I mean, it is very obvious what they want to do. So this is why I say that Israel has to be stopped. Do you guys understand why I keep saying that this destruction has to stop? Now, some of you may be watching this and wondering, well, what could possibly change anything? The other Arab nations are going to have to form an alliance against Israel. This is why I keep pointing fingers at Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Jordan, Turkey. They are all going to have to come together to stop this. If they keep bending the knee to Israel and the United States, this could be the future. And again, this is also if you believe in the biblical prophecy. Not everyone does, obviously. And then that takes me back to part one of this series, when I was talking about, do we even know if those are all the books from the Bible? Because I've read before that there's lost books from the Bible. Also, who really sat down and wrote the Bible? Who did the translation? How do you know you're getting the full story and not just the one that Zionists wanted you to know? It is always important to ask questions. And anyone telling you that you should not ask questions you need to honestly look at them with a side eye. What is it they don't want you to know or they don't want you to ask about? So these are things that need to be answered. There are some that follow the New Testament, some that follow the Old Testament, some that look at both, but the New Testament is supposed to basically overrule the Old Testament. So who's right? And then when you look at the different denominations within Christianity, who is correct? Is it the Pentecostals? Is it the Methodists? Is it what do we used to call them? The Lutherans? Who is, because people have different Bibles. And this is why Israel needs the evangelicals. This is why they need you. This is why they flew 1,000 pastors to Israel to come back home and brainwash their congregation that Israel is not committing genocide and this is what God wants. This is why they freaked out when they saw that some of the young right-wing people are turning away from Israel. They didn't like seeing those numbers. This is why they're panicking. They need the evangelicals. They need to use you. One more part here.
This is the map. Also, if you look at the flag of Israel, there are two blue lines, right? These represent rivers, the Nile and the Euphrates. All right? So if it's a conspiracy theory, then how do you explain these two things? All right, but I want to argue to, you know what? Pax Judaica, it's not about Israel or the Greater Israel Project. What it is ultimately is an alliance of transnational capital, multinationals like Google and Meta, and intelligence agencies that were based in Jerusalem, okay?
Ding, 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 ding. We have a poll there, so I don't know if everyone got a chance to answer the poll. This is what it's about. Transnational capital, multinationals, and intelligence agencies that stand to profit from chaos and conflict around the world. So in order for the surveillance and intelligence agencies to make more money, they need chaos. They need a reason to ramp up. And that's why we keep calling these false flags. A lot of these things that are happening here in the United States and across the world, they want the chaos. They need it. We can't feed into it. But deception is a hell of a drug. A lot of people have been deceived. And see, I want to take you to this part here. Let's go ahead and bring up Revelations, the tribulation phase. The 7-year tribulation begins with peace. This is the parts I think that everyone should pay attention to here. Let me go down to 3.5 years. Soon after this false Christ has promised peace for 7 years, he breaks the peace and commands the world to worship him as God. This act unleashes the wrath of God upon the earth. As the 7 horses of Revelation are sent out, war breaks upon the earth. Millions die as a result from this war and the ensuing destruction of Earth's food supply. Many people will die of starvation, disease, pestilence. So this is what it says here during the Great Tribulation. But then when we fast forward, one thing you'll see here when we get to that peace period, the 7 years of peace is orchestrated by the Antichrist. When the Antichrist arrives on earth just after the rapture of the church occurs, he will institute a 7-year peace plan over the nations of the world. In the midst of these 7 years, he will announce that he is God and command the world to worship him. So this is the big kicker, right? Like at first you're going to see peace. And I think people are going to be happy according to the scripture. People be happy and say, yay, world peace. Woohoo. But then soon after there will come the period of tribulation, constant chaos, nonstop wars, again, according to scripture. And then later on, Jesus is supposed to come in on the white horse. Let's go down here. The return of Jesus to the earth. All of the events of the tribulation and the great tribulation are completed at the end of chapter 18 in the book of Revelation. As we read chapter 19, we see Jesus returning to earth on a great white horse with an army of those who he has redeemed from the earth. You can also see symbolism of this in the Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, when Gandalf appears on the white horse, for those who have seen Lord of the Rings. So Here's the question. And so again, you guys know I'm going to be asking these damn questions. We all know that Israel is a secular state. It's not a religious state. It's a secular state. But then you have people like Mike Huckabee saying we have to support Israel because the Bible tells us to. So how does a secular state get all this support based on scripture when the United States of America has separation of church and state? And not only that, again, it's not a religious state, secular. So what Israel will need to do, and what I believe they plan on doing, is to make the case, obviously, for the biblical narrative. And in order to do that, they'll still be secular. But in order to do that, that's where the geopolitics comes in. We need to take the rest of this land in order to pursue that. We have to take Gaza. We have to take the West Bank. We have to take the rest of Syria. We got to get Jordan. We got from the river to the sea. We got to take all of that to establish that true religious place. Now, one of these steps has already been accomplished because Donald Trump moved the embassy. And you know they got to move the temple. That's another thing. But people are really being conned. And that's why I really call this the biggest psyop of all time. A lot of deception. And if you look at the way that this reporter is questioning Netanyahu, by the way, yeah, I agree. Peak journalism. She killed it. Look at the expression on his face. Listen to what she says.
You know, you've been accused of being a war criminal. That if you went to go to several countries in Europe, you're going to get arrested. This is not just mad campus radicalism. This is a feeling around the world. You said it yourself to us just now. In public opinion around the world, Israel is doing very poorly. And it's doing very poorly because people see a country that is behaving in a way that is not compatible with being a liberal democracy. And therefore, I think you have a problem. I think that loss of public opinion, what struck me from your autobiography was how subtly and for how long you have understood this. You know that political power comes from public opinion, and you know that you need to win the battle of public opinion, and you're losing it. You've absolutely lost it in Europe, but much more worryingly for you, you're losing it in America. Israel is behaving in a way that we think is incompatible with the kind of liberal democracy that we claim.
Well, the liberal democracies, the ideas, the values that we cherish, exactly.
Prime Minister, it really isn't just extreme radicals. There are huge numbers of people who are concerned about Israel's behavior, frankly, including people like me.
And that's why you see that look on Benjamin Netanyahu's face, because no one really presses them that way. And so when we talk about the book of Revelations, they use that as an excuse. They've been using the Bible as an excuse. Essentially, what Israel is a Zionist institution. And Zionism and Judaism is not the same thing, but they have conflated the two. And this is also why they're trying to pass, they really want to pass this definition, because they want to be able to say that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. That's why you see them heading in that direction, because they want to be able to say that this is a religious place, even though it's a secular state. But we have to have this place because the Bible says so, even though you're not a religious state. And there were already people who were there in the area. Zionism came in and pushed those people out. A lot of the people that live in Israel are Ashkenazi. A lot of them that live there, they're not the indigenous people. So essentially you have settler colonialism posing as indigenous people to justify genocide, brutality, and hostility against anyone else who doesn't bend the knee. That's essentially what Israel is. We have to be careful that people just do not end up, falling into these things, because it's scary what's happening. Very scary. Now, one of the things that is said here, I want to point this out. The View said, Sabby, love your work, but when it comes to morality, it really doesn't matter what it says in the Bible. It's a book written by humans, translated by humans with their own perceptions. But it does matter to a lot of people. That's the point that I'm trying to get across. That's what I want you to understand. A lot of people follow it and adhere to it and believe that this is what they are supposed to do. And now I say, look, people have a right to practice whatever religion they want to practice, but I will say this. I think we need to at some point go back through the history of who constructed the Bible. I'm not talking about the apostles with Jesus. I'm talking about who translated that Bible and what was the real agenda. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Thank you. Thank you, Wasim. Milei even passed laws to allow more foreign ownership and buy burnt land faster. I'm sure he did. Thank you, Kenman. I feel Dr. Shiva is connected to all of this. Interesting. Thank you, Ashim. Also, an Israeli developer in Cyprus has been convicted and sentenced to 7 years in prison for land theft and to build a condo for Israelis only. See what I mean? Thank you, Ironwork. Research flat earth and be set free. I don't know about flat earth. Thank you, Measured Man. This is the 7 mountains mandate. This is a part to pull and then bring forth the third temple to prepare for the coming. So they need chaos, so they drain you. There you go. Thank you, Kevin. The doctrine of Israel equals the people of Christ was standard until the Scofield Reference Bible. That's your culprit, not any missing Bible books. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Luben. It basically means that another country needs some good old freedom. And thank you, Imeta. You should follow The Predictive History. It's an amazing channel about history from the sky. Love your show from Brazil. Thank you. Thank you, Marlon. Jesus and Antichrist came in the 1st century. The popular end time narrative is completely wrong. Study Peterism. Don K. Preston and William Bell are great resources. Thank you for the super chat, Karen. And thank you, Brad. Israel to control trade. Why they want war with Russia and Iran. Iran Rudd in East. America to control Arctic and Panama trade for West and North. And see why Trump wants Greenland. Thank you, Imrish. I grow in Israel. They say this all the time. Thank you, Wasim. Hey, Sabby, when the UAE is involved in helping to create Pax Judaica, the Arab nations will be divided, especially when Saudi recently bombed UAE military equipment in Yemen. Thank you, RM. It has been said that the Old Testament was really written by sheep herders. Thanks, Wasim. Don't be surprised that Jordan monarchy will be overthrown from protests. Dave Rubin mentioned to Pierce, send Palestinians to Jordan and free Jordan from his king as he is authoritarianism. And thank you, Tuxedo. If you ain't heard of the Pax, Jay, you ignorant. Okay. All right. All right, ladies and gents, if you haven't had a chance to do so, do me a solid and smash the like. Let's keep it moving and grooving. Keep it moving and grooving. I think we're missing a link here. Give me just a second. We're going to get to the story about Candace Owens. Did I put the same thing twice? I am so sorry, Corey. I think I put the same. Corey's going to be like, what the? Let me just pull this up. There's an announcement that Candace Owens made that I think you guys need to see. Here we go. I'm sorry, guys. Sometimes I end up putting the same links up. Got it. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get into this next story. Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson have been named by the Likud party. This is crazy. It's getting crazy out there for both of them. She tweeted this, and I'm going to take you to the article. The Likud party in Israel just named me and Tucker Carlson as enemies that must be fought. These people are murderers. Murderers are threatening me and Tucker Carlson over speech. How is that at all acceptable to our government? So first of all, again, the Likud party is in Israel. Just imagine if Russia did that. Imagine if China did that. But because it's Israel, it gets a pass. Now, let's get into this article because I see this. I don't know how Candace sees it, but I kind of see this as a hit. Let me put this out here. The Knesset member decries a new enemy, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Again, here we go with Israel naming their names. And I'm going to need for this publication to learn how to make bigger text, for the love of God. In an address to the Knesset on Monday, Likud lawmaker Dan Eluz decried what he said was a new enemy within American politics, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. We are used to enemies from the outside. We fight terror tunnels of Hamas. We fight, they don't go in the tunnels. Let me finish. We fight the ballistic missiles of Iran. You started the preemptive strikes. But today I look at the West, our great ally, and I see a new enemy rising from within. By the way, he's originally from Canada. See what I said about these settlers? I am speaking of a poison being sold to the American people as patriotism. I'm speaking of intellectual vandalism of Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. We highlight this here. Now, why do you think he named those two people? They're not the only ones that have been critical of Israel, but he's naming them because they're conservatives. And like I told you, Israel needs those evangelical Christians. They're conservatives that have a large platform. They have a large following. And he sees Tucker and Candace as a problem for Israel accomplishing its greater mission. Because like I said, if they lose the evangelicals, they don't really have much. To me, this is like a hit list. We talked about before in the show about a year ago, there were a number of American journalists that were put on Ukrainian kill lists. Like Aaron Mate was one of those people that was put on that kill list. I think Katie Halper was put on one of them as well. Think about this for a second. So I don't think this is just them calling them out. I see this as a threat. And I think other people need to take it as a threat as well. His comments came as the Republican Party has been roiled in recent months by debates over the mainstreaming of anti-Semitic influencers within the GOP. And see, there they go. They label them anti-Semitic right off the bat. In October, conservative commentator Tucker Carlson hosted far-right anti-Semitic influencer Nick Fuentes on his platform, igniting outrage from Jewish conservatives who warned of growing reach of anti-Semitic voices. This is another thing I need you guys to pay attention to. Tucker Carlson is not the only podcaster that has interviewed Nick Fuentes. Again, why are they calling out him but not the others? Think about that for a second. Let's go on here. Owens had long made anti-Semitic rhetoric a hallmark of her YouTube channel, which has 5.7 million subscribers. A recent analysis of her content by the Jewish People Policy Institute found that 3/4 of her videos that mentioned Jews were anti-Semitic. But again, they keep changing this definition, right? So they keep throwing this word around, hoping it'll sting. They claim to fight the woke left. They are no different than the woke left. The radical left tears down the statues of Thomas Jefferson. Tucker Carlson tears down the legacy of Winston Churchill. What the? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This is hilarious to me. You know why? I would say that Winston Churchill tore down his own legacy. They are giving people too much credit for just you know what I mean? Times change, people move on. But now they're saying Tucker Carlson tore down Winston Churchill's legacy. This is hilarious. I'm sorry. The radical left says Western civilization is evil. Candace Owens says the roots of our faith are demonic. It is the same sickness. I don't know what to say. This is wild, fam. Let's continue here. Carlson and Owens are among the right-wing influencers who have made opposition to Israel a centerpiece of their output at a time when support for Israel is declining among conservatives, particularly younger conservatives. And there you go. By the way, Tucker Carlson interviews quite a variety of people. Everything that he does is not always about Israel. I've seen him interview Jeffrey Sachs. I mean, I've seen a lot of people like on Tucker Carlson's podcast. You know, it just, to me, it's, I don't know. I know Candace doesn't interview as many people as like Tucker does. But even then, they're not talking about all the other things that Candace talked about, right? Like Brigitte Macron. Don't forget, what's her name? The woman married to Ryan Reynolds. I always forget this girl's name. But the Justin Baldini story, remember that? Like she dove into that. She also did a whole series about Kamala Harris. They didn't have anything to say about Candace Owens then. Let's continue on here. In November, Amichai Chikli, the Israeli diaspora minister, echoed Alou's concerns in an interview with the New York Post, telling the outlet that he was far more concerned about anti-Semitism on the right than on the left. The comments were notable because Chikli is himself a right-wing anti-woke warrior in a first for Israel, has stoked relationships with far-right European parties that in some cases have ties to Nazis. Jesus Christ. One of the worst moments was when popular conservative broadcaster called one of the most vile Holocaust deniers in America one of the most honest historians. That legitimizes hate. It normalizes it. So they go on to talk about him there. Back to Candace and Tucker. The Times of Israel asked Alous whether he was worried about appearing to interfere with American politics. Defending the alliance between America and Israel is not interfering. I'm in touch with many pro-Israel conservatives who know that Candace and Tucker are a threat to America as much as to Israel. So there you have it. So the message has been put out that this guy feels as though Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson got to go, that they are a threat to Israel. And I would say, essentially, I feel like he put out a hit. All right. Now, let's see what is being said. Here's one of the things I think that is probably really going to disturb them. Candace calling out Jerry Falwell. Does everybody remember Jerry Falwell? I do. Candace Owens just leaked that the government of Israel gifted a private jet to Jerry Falwell to buy the loyalty of American evangelicals. See, again, I told you, that's the gold mine for them. They need the evangelicals.
In 1948, the very year that Israel became a nation, Kerry Hezekiah died from cirrhosis of the liver, and his son, Jerry Falwell Sr., had an immediate radical conversion to Christianity. Bootlegging, trafficking, smuggling, be damned, because his business was now going to be the church, ministering. He became a televangelist, and he established Lynchburg College in 1971, which would eventually change its name to Liberty University that we know today. And yes, it is true, in 1979, Jerry Falwell Sr. was gifted a Learjet from the founder of the Likud party, then Prime Minister of Israel, Menachem Begin.
So there we go. The Likud party again. So the Likud party gifting things to Jerry Falwell. And it is the Likud party that named Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson in that article. So I believe many of these televangelists have been controlled from day one. You know, my mom used to watch televangelists back in the day, and I used to be like, how do we not know this is a scam? Like they would sit there and just basically say, donate money. And they would say, we healed this person. And I'm like, how do we know that person really got healed? I mean, we saw them walk up to the pastor, and then how do we know that's real? How do I know that's not an actor? How do I know, just asking these questions, that type of thing. The televangelists have tremendous reach and have continued to have it. People like Joel Osteen is a big one. By the way, these guys are mega rich. TD Jakes is another big, these guys are loaded. And then there was, the 700 Club. I remember back in the day, they also very pro-Israel, supporting this, defending it. FM just brought up another one that I forgot about. That was Jimmy Baker. Like a lot of money went into making sure that Christians would support Israel. A lot of money, honey.
Now, that's pretty nice of Israel. But I always am wondering, in exchange for what? Like, in exchange for what? Because that kind of reminds me about how Bibi Netanyahu wanted to take Turning Point USA to the next level. He offered to take Turning Point USA to the next level. Charlie Kirk said no. But apparently nobody in the mainstream media is interested in answering the question as to why he wanted to take Turning Point to USA to the next level. What does Israel have to do with young evangelicals, a young evangelical organization? Also, how? That's my other big question. How exactly was he planning to get that money into Turning Point USA? I'm assuming he wasn't going to write like a blank check from the Likud party. Surely he was going to accomplish that through other people and their organizations, because Israel never gets their hands dirty if they can avoid it. That's the lesson of yesterday, by the way. You employ Christians to do your dirty work.
So that is obviously not something that they would be fond of. That was more recent, calling that out. I've been trying to tell you guys, like when they sent those pastors over to Israel, you already know what the mission is going to be. Now, Gen X Girl, let's give her a shout out, round of applause for Gen X Girl, because she made an entire spreadsheet of all the churches that were represented, that were part of that propaganda. So like I said, if you're still going to church and if your pastor comes back and starts saying these types of things, you might want to start asking some questions. Why Tucker Carlson? Here's something he said more recently. You guys know he's been really on and on about free speech. Listen to this.
Views you're about to hear are much, much more common than you may realize. Here he is.
The amount of hate speech that we've seen during this time, I mean, it's off the charts. You look through social media, you see it even on television. The lines, they're not even blurred anymore. They're gone. How do you even begin to tackle such a phenomenon?
Well, I think we have to have an understanding that, first of all, in this country, we believe very strongly in free speech. It's the basis in our Constitution. And we also believe in the freedom of religion. You have to balance that, but you balance that in two ways. Europe has hate speech laws, probably some of the best on the books, but it's selectively enforced. So if you selectively enforce a rule, it's not going to have any effect whatsoever. And you can see how it's had no effect in Europe in monitoring and stopping the hate.
So this guy is something called the anti-Semitism czar. It's an office set up by George W. Bush, like most insane, unjustifiable things, anti-Semitism czar at the State Department, focused on one specific kind of ethnic hate, not protecting all Americans. There is no stop anti-white hate czar, of course, and there never will be, because the same people who are upset about hate are promoting that kind of hate. But whatever, it's one specific group protected somehow by the United States.
Imagine if I called myself the Black Czar. Like, just think about this for a second, guys. Like, that is silly, right? I know, like, haha, but it's just ridiculous. Imagine if I called myself Sabrina Salvati, the Black Czar. This is the dumbest thing I ever heard of, right? But here we are.
State Department. But this is a guy who actually has a job in administration saying it's great. European hate crimes laws are great. Well, first of all, every single one of them is immoral. And two, they're all contrary to the First Amendment. You couldn't have laws like that here. And three, when you actually look at those laws that Rabbi Yehuda Kaplan is saying are so great, they're used to suppress Christianity. That's what they actually are, of course.
So now you got Tucker Carlson criticizing rabbis. So the Likud party definitely is not going to like that. So that's another one, right? That he's criticizing the rabbis, and they're just like, oh no, he's called them out. And I think with Tucker Carlson, his criticism of Israel over time since the genocide started, it moved rather steadily. Like, he didn't come out on day one and just say, oh, fuck them mofos. Like, that's it. That's a wrap. This is insane. He tread lightly at first and kind of, just waded in the water a little bit, and then started noticing more and more. And actually, he became more critical about what Israel was doing under the Trump administration than under the Biden administration. And I think maybe he expected Trump to come in and fix all of that, like Trump said he would, but you know how that is. But he took his time, like kind of getting there, and they're naming him. When there were people who came out on day one that were very, very vocal and critical of Israel, not named. So what is it about these two? Again, I think it's that they have a massive following. Candace at one point was a part of Turning Point USA, so I think they look at her as like a traitor. They're like, betrayal. Tucker was a part of Fox News. He describes himself as a Christian. But why these two? I mentioned the platform, but what else? If you think of another reason, let me know. What is it about those two? You don't see them. They didn't name Dave Smith. Dave Smith went hard against Israel on day one. Think about that for a second.
And creativity and freedom of thought and individual conscience and the humanity of the populations of European countries, all suppressed by this. But Christianity is always number one. So in Finland, for example, one of the lead opposition political leaders is now on trial. Why? Why is she on trial? Because she tweeted a quote from Romans, the Epistle to the Romans by St. Paul. You may have heard of it. It's a significant book in the New Testament. And in it, he describes basic Christian sexual ethics, like one man, one woman against other forms of sexual expression. That's Christianity. And that was deemed a hate crime under the law, under those European hate crimes laws, hate speech laws that Rabbi Yehuda Kaplan is saying we should emulate, but maybe enforce a little tougher, more selectively. This is what will destroy the country and divide the country and make people hate each other. Whenever the U.S. government protects one group and allows others to be attacked, whenever the U.S. government promotes one group and suppresses another group, it's prima facie unfair, but it's also the most divisive thing you could ever do to any country.
And there it is. I think at that point, they felt Tucker Carlson had also said too much, right? Because you're admitting that Israel is oppressing another group of people and also occupying another group of people. The Nick Fuentes thing, I think, really pissed them off. But like I said, he's not the only one that interviewed Nick Fuentes. So why so much focus on him? Nick Fuentes, he went on Candace's show. He went on Dave Smith's show. He went on Piers Morgan's show, although Piers Morgan definitely fought back harder against him. But he's been on a number of shows. So they look at people like Tucker and Candace and they say, I think, hey, they have tremendous influence. We have to go after them. But first of all, another country, you have no right to tell the U.S. or to tell Americans what they need to do about people right here in the United States. That's the part that I find to be very damning, that another country is saying you guys need to do something about Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. And I say deception is a hell of a drug because, here's something to think about. Had it not been for October 7th, do we get here? Do more people wake up if there's no October 7th? I don't think they do. I've been talking about the Israel issue since the day I started this channel, which is 2021. When I started this show, I think the channel started end of 2019, but I started the podcast 2021. So it makes you wonder what's happening there. But I have great offense for people who are naming Americans, putting them on some list as to like Donald Trump or whoever is in charge over there. You need to get your people in line. I have a serious problem with that. We get called all types of names if we even just criticize Israel. But here you guys are telling us what we need to do and who needs to be controlled. So pay attention to the free speech laws, pay attention to the definitions. We continue to cover updates on that because they really do want to silence people. And right now, it looks like they're trying to silence people with the biggest microphone, which is Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. All right, ladies and gents, let's keep it moving and grooving. We're doing pretty good on time. Smash the like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. Let's keep it moving on. We're going to the next story. Speaking of Israel, we got a problem. We got a problem. I, for one, take more offense to actions than rhetoric. But lately, what I have been seeing is politicians and those alike showing more outrage and frustration over rhetoric that is against Israel instead of Israel's actions. Case in point, take AOC right now, for example. Her and Zoran are getting a lot of backlash for this. This is what she said about the protesters in Queens. Hey, so marching in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood and leading with a chant saying we support Hamas is disgusting and anti-Semitic thing to do. Pretty basic. So first of all, there's the smugness of it to me, right? Pretty basic. Sounds smug. And then there's this whole thing of predominantly Jewish neighborhood, right? So let's see who was present at this protest, because I want you guys to see this. This is really interesting. Orthodox Jewish New Yorkers. AOC doesn't mention that. That's intentional. So here's what AOC is not telling you. Why are they there? They are there protesting because these synagogues are hosting real estate events inside to sell Palestinian homes in the West Bank to Americans. That's why they are there. They are not there protesting because they have an issue with their religion. That's not what this is about. But AOC knows that. So what is she campaigning for? Is it governor? Is it senator? Probably not governor. Is it president? Who is she trying to virtue signal to? So there were Orthodox Jews there that are part of the protest, but she doesn't mention that. She says predominantly Jewish neighborhood and leading this chant. So let's go on to the next one. Zoran. Similar thing, not as smug as AOC is. When he is questioned about the protesters who said that in Queens, listen to this.
Okay. What do you think of those protesters? Can you say it one more time? What do you think of those protesters that said we support Hamas here in Queens?
I think that language is wrong. I think that language has no place in New York City. And what would you say, sir?
For Henry, are you concerned with alienating any endorsement?
So again, we are focusing on language instead of behavior. You know, and a lot of us have been watching the way that AOC has been moving. We've been watching when she stood up there on that stage during the DNC convention and she said Kamala's working tirelessly for a ceasefire. That was a lie. She got called out by her own colleague, Ilhan Omar, for that one. The way that she's moving, she is positioning herself to run for something bigger. She's very quick to come out and defend Israel on Twitter. I've noticed this. But where is this same energy for the homes that are being sold, actually stolen and sold to Americans here that are Palestinian homes in the West Bank? Where's that same energy? So this is my response to this here. The focus and the priority should be placed on the fact that you have real estate events in the United States and in Canada, by the way, that are selling Palestinian homes in the West Bank to Americans, which is actually against international law. Shouldn't you lead with that? You don't agree with the rhetoric? Fine. I believe in free speech, so I'm just like, I don't have to listen to it. I don't agree with it. I ain't got to listen to it. But shouldn't you lead with, it is absolutely insane and against international law that these real estate events are selling Palestinian homes in the West Bank that are stolen from the Palestinian people to Americans here abroad? Why not lead with that? So speaking of that, Zoran was questioned again. And I want you to hear what he said this time. He was questioned about those homes being stolen and then sold.
I was just wondering, like, why you didn't condemn both sides of this.
Sorry, can you say the last part?
If you have a comment on the Israel side.
Well, I absolutely am in opposition to the sale of land in the occupied West Bank. It's something in violation of international law, and that comes from my belief in the importance of following international law.
Okay. He said it's a violation of international law. And he said he's, against that. But notice they don't lead with that. That's the problem. And again, it's like I said, they're putting themselves in a position to go for something higher at some point in time. Now, this isn't new. We got to go back to when this was reported by The Guardian, 2024. Hundreds of Palestinian supporters protest Israeli real estate event at New Jersey synagogue. Just want to remind everybody, when we were talking about this a year ago, that they were selling these homes. This was March of 2024. Hundreds of people marched through the suburb of Teaneck, New Jersey, in protest of a real estate fair held in the Kedator synagogue that featured an Israeli company pitching properties in Israel and the occupied West Bank, again, against international law. And you know what? They're slick about it too. They host these events at a synagogue. So if you protest outside of the synagogue, they can say that you're being anti-Semitic because you're protesting outside of their place of worship. Organized by several Jewish organizations, including the Northern New Jersey branch of Jewish Voices for Peace, along with Teaneck for Palestine, the protesters marched 1.4 miles from the Teaneck Armory to the synagogue, waving flags, beating drums, and chanting Free Palestine. The real estate company called My Home in Israel, they got some nerve, don't they? My Home in Israel. Wow. Has organized several exhibitions across cities in Canada and the US, including Teaneck, a commuter town on the outskirts of New York City. According to its website, the company boasts luxury apartments, many penthouses, and villas for sale across Israel and the occupied West Bank. At least 2 apartment complexes offer an urban living experience in a perfect environment in the settlement of Ariel, near the West Bank city of Nablus. So this is a problem. It's been happening. And I just don't think that AOC and Zoran are prioritizing the real issue here. This is why I say deception is a hell of a drug. What matters more? What is coming out of someone's mouth, their rhetoric, their language, or someone's behavior? Actual land theft, stealing people's homes, selling it to someone else. I told you a lot of people over there are settlers, and they attend these real estate events here, right here in the United States. They buy these homes, someone else's home. Who knows if they were beaten, killed? They took it from them somehow, and then they move over there. So, what is more important? Someone chanting something or someone stealing something and giving it to someone it doesn't belong to? I think this is why I say the politicians at the end of the day, they're not saviors, they're not heroes. A lot of these people are looking forward to their next political, journey in their career, and they're preparing for that. And they'll say whatever they need to say to kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if someone told her to say that. When you decide to defend the occupier, you prioritize the occupier. You lose sympathy for the occupied. The right thing to do would be to prioritize those who are occupied, not the people doing the occupying. Something to think about. Let's continue on, ladies and gents. Oh, one more here. Sorry. One more here. This is important. When we talk about protesting, right? I want to remind you what Malcolm X said. Listen to this.
But I take it then you support the freedom-loving attempts of the peaceful marchers in Alabama and these places.
You don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom. And when black people in this country come out from under the mental straitjacket that the Negro clergymen have placed them in, and begin to see that the only way you can get freedom is to get it the same way the white man in this country got it from England, or he says he got it from England. He was willing to pay the price for freedom. When you're willing to pay the price for freedom, then you get it. But the Negro in this country has never been willing to pay the price for his freedom. All of the price that we have been paying in the past has been freedom for the white man. We fought abroad so that the white man in America could be free today to sick police dogs on us, to beat our people in the heads with police clubs, and to turn water hose on little women and children and babies simply because they want to walk down the street like decent human beings. That's now the only way you can have peace is to eliminate those injustices, and the American white man is not going to eliminate them. He's going to talk that pretty talk, but he'll still continue to practice those inhuman deeds.
But I take it then.
So the point is this, AOC, who's worried about rhetoric, Zoran, who's worried about rhetoric, and Zoran knows this because of his dad, in the history with his dad. Freedom is not free. And it's not peaceful. It's just the reality. And people are telling you, tone it down. Don't speak this way. Don't use that vocabulary. People who are telling you that, they're not trying to get some type of freedom for the Palestinian people. They're trying to have a little teeny bit of reform, which means they'll still be occupied. It's crazy when you think about it, right? All right. We have one more story for you, ladies and gents. Yes, we do. Let's go ahead and get to that one as well. Again, the theme tonight is deception is a hell of a drug. Hell of a drug. So is Erika Kirk. Because here's the thing. Ever since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the things that have been revealed about Erika is just very weird. Very weird. We talked about her parents. We talked about her mom being part of DHS, her mom's company as well, like in Arizona. We talked about her dad working for defense in Israel. We've gone down that road, and now we're going a step further here. First and foremost, last time we heard from Erika, aside from that America Fest, sorry, I'm laughing. That was a funny time. Erika said that she needed time to grieve and she needs to be left alone, right? Like, give her time. She needs to be left, give her time to grieve. Now, this is when Candace was they were asking to meet at one point, right? That was before they met. And I don't know, because now there's some other things that have been revealed, right? Sam Parker, who I think has been on Erika's ass. Like this guy, I don't know who he is, but he's been on Erika's ass. He said it's been 12 days since Erika Kirk's failed attempt at an alibi. She says she's been too busy with sick kids to resend a text message to Candace. Does this look like she's too busy to send a follow-up text message? So here's a picture here of Erika with who I believe is probably her son, supposed to be her son. And this looks like it was shared on Instagram. It says here, exploring with my little loves, making soup for Nana with Chef GG, what I would give for a real one. I feel you with me always. Mama Lo still giving her words of wisdom the best she can. Moments of overwhelming humility drenched in God's grace, making childhood memories, unexpected friendships, your voice and wisdom that continues to echo throughout the world, making heaven crowded. So this was shared on Instagram, and I am not one to say, you can't obviously spend time with your child. That's not what I'm saying. But what's weird is like, it seemed like she was angry that people were critical of her or asking questions and that she wanted privacy, but she's everywhere. Like if it's not, America Fest, I understand they already had that plan, but I mean, she came out on the stage like, I thought she was, what's the woman's name? Tammy Baker? The way she walked out there with that sequin suit and what's going on around here? Don't understand. Right? And she's been everywhere since then. That's the other thing. If we go into this part here, Project Constitution has been following her plane. This is cracking me up. Project Constitution said Erika is out here living her best life since Charlie's assassination, and the internet is losing. Y'all keep hitting me with people grieve in different ways. Okay, sure. But come on. Charlie's gone. Erika's single again. Apparently doesn't have her kids anymore. We'll get to that in just a second. She's jet setting nonstop on a private jet to Cabo and Miami, the two biggest party capitals on the planet. Bikinis, beaches, nightlife, celebrity hotspot. Girl is out here looking for husband number 2 already. The flight radar is spilling all the tea. Frequent trips to these exact spots while the kids are nowhere in sight. And she's thriving like never before. Grief looks different for everyone, but this looks like she finally got her freedom back or something way darker. Here's the other question. Where are the kids? Who's paying for endless luxury getaways? And why does it feel like she's celebrating instead of mourning? The internet wants answers, not excuses. Okay, so he has been able to follow this jet. Have to mute it because of the music. But if this is correct, it shows it going from Scottsdale to Cabo. Cabo is a party destination for those who are not familiar. Scottsdale to Miami, another party destination. I don't know why they're showing the bikini shots there.
Fox News programming.
Daddy's home. Take his phone. Friday night. Shabbat Shalom.
Ass-grabbing leather and glittery pantsuits, scripted town halls, pyrotechnics-infused entries, caressing the Vice President of the United States and conducting merch giveaways. Like, where the hell are this woman's kids?
You're victimizing the victim, if that makes sense.
Pause here because we'll get to that in just a second. But the question that people are asking is, where are Erika's kids. Like what is going on here? For someone who said, give me time, give us, and I get it, it's been a couple of months since Charlie Kirk was killed, but where are the kids? Because I have another picture to show you as well, whereas people are like, so now she's at this bowl game. Like, where are for someone who said that they needed time, like give them privacy, for someone who said that, she is not being private at all. And I think, like, if you're going to be a celebrity or a public figure, when you leave the house, when you go to said events, I feel like people have a right to comment. I feel like they do. If you don't want to be seen, stay your ass in the house. And I'll tell you an example about that. Singer and legend, Patti LaBelle. Patti LaBelle said this a long time ago on a talk show. She said that people get what they sign up for. She said, I knew getting into this that there was a possibility I could be famous, I could be a celebrity. So I don't leave the house if I don't want to be bothered. She said, if you don't want to be bothered and you're famous and you're a celebrity, leave your ass in the house. So that's the part to me that just kind of gets me, is like, she's getting mad because people are like, why are you out and about? But she's the one that's out and about. And then there's this part. Now, all of a sudden, there's this documentary that has resurfaced, apparently, where Erika Kirk is in the documentary and partnered with the guy who's CIA. And like, this is wild. Let's go ahead and bring this in here. Like I said, we just keep finding out more and more and more. Let's start with the community note first, and then we'll get into it. It says the clip comes from the public 2015 documentary Black Start on grid threats, not CIA produced, but it said it features Erika presenting alongside former CIA director James Woolsey. Her family business includes EMP protection tech. So we knew things about like Erika. We've been discovering things, but now we see she's rubbing elbows here with a former CIA director. Let's get into this documentary vid here. Check this out. So that's her.
We have 5 major threats that make our grid extremely vulnerable that we've presented to congressional officials. 1 being cyber, 2 being hackers, 3 being physical threats, 4th one is solar EMP, and the 5th one is man-made EMP. So the concern that we have is that we put out this critical information, and when we go over this risk analysis, they hear what we're saying, but they don't want to take action.
Guys, do you have ties or connection to a CIA director or a former CIA director? Because I don't. It's just all getting more and more weird. And then when Candace came up with the story about the Fort Huachuca and Mitch and all of that was revealed, it's just kind of like now, you look back at it and it's like Erika and friends wanted to pretend as though that was a far-fetched idea. But the more that keeps being revealed about her past, it doesn't seem that far-fetched now, does it? Look at all these connections. The Romanian orphanage, which there was alleged sex trafficking and abuse. The parents in the Department of Defense for Israel. The mom, DHS. And now we see that, like, all these things scream honeypot to me. All of it. And now we see this documentary where she's working directly with the CIA director. What the absolute hell? It's wild.
What we're saying, but they don't want to take action.
Well, there are 18 critical infrastructures in the United States: food, water, transportation, communication.
This guy.
Etc. All 17 of the others depend on electricity.
If our grid goes down, you can't cook, you're not going to heat anything, you can't run any of your medical supplies, you can't talk on your phone, you can't take money out of a bank. And
isn't that Janine from Fox News? Is everybody putting all the pieces together? Ay, ay, ay.
We turn into total chaos.
If this happens, the system stops.
If a transformer is taken down, we have to order it from Germany or China. It's going to take a year.
So do you guys hear this? And it's like pro-war. It's pro-war. That's really what this is. Let me come out a little bit here. Let me just see what they show you here because I don't want to. Okay, yeah. So let me go back. This is wild. This is wild, man.
Up till recently, there were no comprehensive protective solutions available.
We know what the solutions are. They're not expensive. They're not difficult to employ. We just need the political will to do it and the follow through on the part of the electric utilities to get it done.
The White House is protected from an EMP. The Congress and the CIA and the NSA, all of the areas that need to function in the government are protected. So why can't we be protected?
Around some of these facilities, you don't have much more than a chain link fence to keep people out. Now that seems absurd to me.
I think it is absurd when we now know that attack on as few as 9 grid substations could bring down all 3 major interconnections for the United States.
So basically what you see here, again, if we go back to, it's just weird, like all of this stuff. We go back to even the community notes. It says her family's business includes EMP protection tech. So it's just, what is this? It's strange. Again, like if, let's say none of those other things happened. Let's say the Romanian orphanage didn't happen. Let's say the defense, Israeli defense didn't happen with her dad. Let's say her mom wasn't part of Homeland Security. Then you can kind of say, okay, she was in this documentary, you know, it just is what it is. Maybe she didn't know anything about it. But it's all of it together. It's all of it together. And then there was this other thing that I want to get into here as well. I didn't know this either. More people are finding things. That's what I'm saying. Did you guys know that Erika apparently is at least Facebook friends with Benjamin Netanyahu's son? Check out this message. Look, Erika and Yair Netanyahu are Facebook friends. Netanyahu liked her photo that was posted after she started dating Charlie. Checks out. Here's the date, September 25th, 2019. And we click on here, we can see the likes. And there's Netanyahu's son. I mean, it's all like everything is connecting. So, of course, like she's pro-Israel. There's Netanyahu's son. Just happens to seem to be around the same time she was dating Charlie, or at least started dating him. That don't seem kind of weird to you guys? It's just weird to me. Now, we go back to the plane. The video that was shown where it showed a plane, her private plane leaving from Arizona and going to Miami. You know who else lives in Miami? Benjamin Netanyahu's son. Doesn't mean it was necessarily him. We don't know, but he does live there. He has a big ass luxury apartment. His son is not in Israel with the IDF. He ain't over there. Like, you know, he's right here in the United States. And we can look at this here. Now, here's the thing about the kids. Now, for the record, Representative Anna Paulina has clarified, but I'm still going to show you what she said. To clarify, I meant to say the kids lost their dad. PBD podcast is not edited, so it was not changed or taken out. So it must have been, I don't know if it was a live interview, but it wasn't edited, right? Now, some of you are like, what is she talking about? What I found weird about this is that he didn't question it. Listen to what she says.
Discord seems to be a common thread. I do think that the shooter in Pennsylvania had a handler. It seems like there's similar profiles to these people. So I definitely am curious myself to see what that evidence is. But I do think that when the information isn't put out there directly, that's when you have a lot of these, well, you know, could have Erika have been involved in any of that? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that she at all had any connection to that. When I see that, it's like you're victimizing the victim, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, she did lose her husband. She lost her kids. Like, I was just with her at the White House. And
she lost her what? So this is the part that really threw people for a loop. And I had to go back and say, did she say what I thought she said?
Those people are gagged.
I'm not a fan of gag orders because of what I saw happen with President Trump in New York City when they were trying to put a gag order on him to control the narrative about that. What I will also say, though, is I'm curious to see what evidence they do have. So I'm curious to see what they can present in court. Because if you have evidence where you have like prints on everything and the guy's, you know, pleading guilty to it, I think it's a lot different. That'll answer a lot of questions. But either which way, I mean, Charlie was on the path to become and probably easily get elected based on the base that he had and the reach that he had and the ability to connect with people and the messaging and just the ability to break through cognitive dissonance. He was like a complete just machine in that sense.
And someone didn't want that to happen. But this part right about here.
Could have had prints, all that. That's gone. So if that's happening with cocaine, no, I'm not surprised. Yeah. You had some crazy people in and out of that White House.
I'm sure they had a great weekend. People.
Don't use cocaine, guys.
No, but Theo Von said it best to J.D. Vance. He said, we can't even do cocaine nowadays, right? I don't know if you saw that clip with Theo.
Well, there's fentanyl. Don't do cocaine.
No, don't touch it.
Go
ever.
Running and stuff, you know. But the fact that Discord seems to be a common thread, I do think that the shooter in Pennsylvania had a handler. It seems like there's similar profiles to these people. So I definitely am curious myself to see what that evidence is. But I do think that when the information isn't put out there directly, that's when you have a lot of these, well, you know, could have Erika have been involved in any of that? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that she at all had any connection to that. When I see that, it's like you're victimizing the victim, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, she did lose her husband. She lost her kids. Like, I was just.
She said she did lose her husband. She lost her kids. Now, this interview apparently took place 2 months ago, but I never saw it. I don't watch PBD podcasts. So I didn't see it. But apparently people just picked up on the fact that she said this. And so that viral moment made its way around on social media. Now, she came forward and she said that she misspoke. She meant to say the kids lost their father. I don't know. Because what is also weird is that he didn't ask any question about that. When she continues here after she says she lost her kids.
But they're at the White House and she's, you know, that's anyone. If that happened to your wife, my husband, like it's devastating. But I do think that there will be a lot probably that will come out in the trial. And it'll answer a lot of questions, which I think people should see the evidence.
Yeah. What's the one thing that came out, Rob, that
he goes into what's the one thing that came out, Rob? And he's a bootlicker too, by the way. Patrick Bet-David, he's terrible. This guy's terrible. You want to talk about schemes. You want to talk about a con artist. Like this guy had a freaking pyramid scheme. I call him a robber. He basically definitely exploited people. Yeah, he was one of those. He was part of one of those, you know, the multi-level pyramid schemes. He started one of those companies and like he greatly got criticized for this. Like he got like really viciously attacked because he like exploited people. Yeah. He wants to be, he's pro-Israel so bad. He kissed Benjamin Netanyahu's ass when he came on the show. This guy's terrible. But notice how he didn't ask when she said Erika lost her kids. Notice how he didn't ask her, like, what do you mean she lost her kids? And so I Googled it and I was curious. Like I said, she said she misspoke. I Googled it and it seems that there are some rumors that are possibly happening. And what I saw is it says that there are a number of rumors that are online where people are saying that there's some type of custody battle between her and the grandparents, allegedly. I don't know. I couldn't find anything that confirmed that, to be honest. But that's what the rumors are out there in those streets. But Erika don't look like she's grieving to me. This is recent. Another glitzy night out at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Erika Kirk front and center, all smiles, celebrating. But real talk, it's been just 4 months since Charlie tragic death, and those little ones just lost their dad in the most horrific way. Where are the kids in these constant outings? Bowl games, events, travel? Seems like they are rarely, if ever, around. Are they okay? Who's watching them while mom's out cheering and networking? Kids that young are struggling hard with grief. They need stability, routine, and their remaining parents close by more than ever. This doesn't look like mourning. It looks like moving on fast. Grief is personal, but when you're only parent left, priorities shift to make the babies first. And I think she's correct. So here she is, at the Peach Bowl. And some people may see this and they're like, well, Sabby, you being too hard on her. She's allowed to go to a football game. Okay. I mean, like, didn't she tell everybody that she needed this time alone at home and to give her that privacy and give her that space? And you asking for space, but you out here in public. I'm confused. Which one is it? Space, public, space, public. So there's that. And then also the Miami thing to me really, really, really sticks out, because is it possible that she is going from Arizona to go visit Benjamin Netanyahu's son? And what could be going on there, mind you? I'm just saying, something is not right. You can't ask for privacy, but you continue to be public. That's like me walking outside tomorrow and saying, all right, guys, I want some privacy. Everybody says, okay, Sabs. But then the next day, you see me at a concert. Then the day after that, you see me like at a football game, and you see me at, but I wanted to be private though. Something is weird. Something is off there. And I say again, deception is a hell of a drug. It's a hell of a drug, because if it were me and I had 2 little kids and they lost their father, that would be my focus right now. Not traveling all across the world, not going to Miami. People say, well, she's the CEO of Turning Point. She has to do it. No, there's other people that could take up that role so that she can spend time with her kids, because it's true what that woman said. Kids do need stability, especially when they lose a parent. There's nothing worse than talk to anyone who lost their parent when they were a kid, and they'll tell you there's nothing worse than when a child, especially that age, loses a parent. And there does need to be stability there. But how is there stability when you all over the place? Why are you going to Cabo? That's not no business meeting place. People go to Cabo to party. That's why they go there. People don't go to Cabo to do business. They go to Cabo to party. So I don't know, guys. The handler thing looks more and more suspicious to me. The handler thing. It really stands out. So, ladies and gents, that is it for me. Many of you are wondering, what can you do about all of it? Just a reminder, I do have my monthly mutual aid workshop this month. It'll be January 24th at 11 a.m. ET via Zoom. We'll use Zoom. I send out the invite via my newsletter. So again, the way that we fight back against a lot of this stuff is by building dual power. It's hard to fight back just relying on politicians because they're part of the problem. That's just the reality. And they fall into the same system. They give into a lot of that stuff, right? So building dual power, and one of those ways that we do that is via mutual aid. So if you just sign up for my Substack, it's free. You will receive the invite for that via my Substack. So we do these once a month. They've been going pretty well. And people are getting out there in the streets doing mutual aid. Let's see that poll. There's some polls in this house. There's some polls in this house. All right. Have you heard of Pax Judaica? 5,419 votes. 20% said yes, 69% said no. PACs who? And 11% said sounds familiar, but not sure. Interesting. All right, ladies and gents, that is it for me. Eric is going to close out the show, and he'll also read the super chats. Thank you guys. So holy crap, Project Constitution is here. Erika is cooked. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much. Thank you.
People in the poll said PAX who?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people have heard of it, but it's something to definitely look at.
And yeah, the earlier story with Trump proposing the credit card interest cap is pretty wild. I mean, it's like he chaotically and effortlessly goes to the left of Democrats like nothing. I mean,
yeah, that was.
And you got,
yeah. But that was something him and Bernie Sanders did agree on.
Yeah, and then you got Bernie jumping in, and it and I'll bring it back to the demands, right? It shows when you have a powerful policy demand like that, it brings everybody in who's not just like totally working for the billionaires or just going chaotic, however Trump is. But anyways, there you go, the power of a powerful demand-based policy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We'll see if that happens. That would be a good thing. Of course, I think like people need a living wage, so we should go further. But let's see if it happens.
Trump's been doing this thing where he throws these things out here too. The other one I saw recently was rescheduling marijuana so that it's no longer a Schedule I drug, which would be a very good positive thing. But I mean, Biden proposed that as well. And actually Biden, I think he put out an executive order, and then it went to the FDA or something like that, and they studied it, and then it never happened. And so far, Trump has done kind of the same thing. It'll be kind of hilarious if he's the one who finally at least gets marijuana off Schedule I, but it's just as likely to just be all talk and just be hung up in there. And you have the thing too with the private equity owning, buying homes, which should be banned in some fashion, but again, it's all talk. But and it adds to the chaos, right?
Yeah. I mean, but these are things that are just common sense. You think that like you would have thought that like Democrats would have just done that before he could even try to have the chance to do it. I mean, it's just common sense. But
unless you work for the billionaires, which they're all doing.
There you go. All right.
So are you ready for the big game tonight? I got my shirt.
Yes. Go Pats. Go Pats. I don't know.
It's a big one.
Nervous. I'm a little nervous. All of these playoff games have been very close. The Bills and the Jaguars, that was very close. Like the Bills just won at the end, like just barely. Yep. Even the Panthers game was close. And the Panthers record wasn't that great, like for the fall. So I don't know. I'm nervous about the game tonight. I'm not going to lie.
And and Chicago just squeezed in, and last night, and then I think it was last weekend or the other day, you had Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers. Did you see how that one ended? Like first the Pittsburgh missed I think it was an extra point, and then all the other team had to come down and hit a field goal, and then the field goal kicker missed the kick, and that was the game. It was crazy.
I know all of these games have been close. Like I haven't seen any blowout yet, so I don't know. I'm nervous, dude. I'm not kidding around. Like I'm nervous. I miss having that bye week.
Yeah, that would have been nice. But we get more football this way, and we'll see how our young Drake May does. He's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, he has been.
Will the legend continue?
We told people, we said give him one season to get his footing, and then things will come around. So
it's crazy how good he's been. Well, there you go. Yeah. The show turned into football talk.
All righty. All right, guys. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.
All right, we're gonna let Sabby go on her way and get ready to watch the big Patriots game tonight. Sorry for all those who are not into football, but we're into a lot of things around here. But back to the politics. It's crazy the way Trump does all this chaos. It's just throwing stuff out there. He's all over the place. Another thing that occurred to me where he's talking about banning private equity from owning houses and reining them in. And one thing you can run into with that is that it'll end up in courts, and one of the problems right now is that under the current US law, money is essentially equated with speech. And what happens is whenever you have a federal law that comes in and tries to restrict how money is used, it can run into that, especially in the political realm. But they would even use it probably in this kind of home ownership realm. And one of the things that's needed is to pass a move to amend style amendment to the Constitution that simply says money is not speech and it can be regulated. And so it's one of the reasons why sometimes I do worry that we focus too much on the specific tools, which are all really good and really needed, but it needs to come back to the overall, the big game of it, which, in my opinion, needs to be a mass movement based on clear demands and always focusing on that corruption. And then you get into what the solutions are and whatnot. Anyways, if you want more on that and details on that, there's the old 11demands.org, which I encourage you all to check out. And we'll be talking, of course, more about that in the future, in future shows. But meanwhile, we got some super chats built up in the queue. So I'm going to read off some of those before we call it a night or a day, depending on where you are. Thanks for the super chat, Empower Man, who says the real agenda is control. Yeah, I mean, I would say control and wealth accumulation, of course, is always, the big billionaire agenda at the top. And things, very well may get more authoritarian as the situation, in general degrades. And yeah, you get into more authoritarian measures and crackdowns. It is, it's certainly worrisome. Thanks for the super chat, Simon. Ancient cosmology, you see the truth, Google it. All right. Some of these super chats go back to the earlier stories. And Kevin Wayne says, I'd like to talk Israel Bible in call-in sometime. All right. Well, feel free to bring that up. We should be having another call-in session probably next week. And thanks for the super chat, Measured Man. Project Constitution told me to send this to you. Thank you for all you do and standing on truth and principle, no matter affiliation. Thanks for that. And thanks for this one, Emrish. He says, the Zionists are a cult and a criminal syndicate. Yep. And, it does. I guess I just always get a little bit uncomfortable with too much focus on Zionism as the root cause. It's definitely a problem, I think, a major issue. I would submit that if you dig down to the root causes, you really come back to the billionaires. You come back to the mega corporations, which are really the same thing, the playthings of the billionaires, and their corruption of how they corrupt the government to do their bidding and to help with their wealth accumulation. I'd put it to you this way: if we could solve the problem that Zionism presents in terms of changing Israel into a real democracy with full rights for the Palestinians, if all that was fixed in a really good way, we would still have a hugely corrupt government, country. Essentially, you would still have wars all around. It's really, the Ukraine-Russia conflict isn't about Zionism. It's a problem, but it's not the problem. It's not the core. And I would submit that if you connect those dots and go to the core, you need to deal with the billionaire problem, with the corruption problem, if you're really going to fix this. And thanks for the super sticker, Elizabeth. Appreciate that. Appreciate you. A few more here in the queue to go through. Thanks for this super sticker, Wasim, who says, funny, Israel were mailing bombs to Winston Churchill, ironically, by B.E. Jin. Okay, not sure about that one, but thanks. Thanks for the super sticker, Tolomia, if I'm pronouncing that right, hopefully. Thanks for that. And thanks for this one, Niesi. who says the Bible is absolute. They're not God's people. And shout out to Robot 2023 for the super sticker. And thanks for the super sticker, Elizabeth Luna, who says, all of them are actors and actresses, politicians and journalists. All of them work for the same demon. I don't believe in anyone. Just pray because their main goal is to reduce population. All right. Thanks for that. And thanks for this one, Geometric Fortitude, who says, Ari Hoffman, Zionism for Likud, an American Jewish pundit, put Republican congressional candidate Mary Silva on a Mossad hit list before Candace or Tucker. And shout out to Chip Walter. It says AOC is confusing the word based with basic. That protest was based AF. And thanks for this one from I Got Cookies. Good name. Who says, we need to start organizing. ICE is out of control against citizens. Please make a video on how we can organize. You have a voice. Appreciate that. And thanks for this very generous super sticker from Focus. Who says, I'm so glad people are finally waking up. And thanks for this one, Brad Gilbert. You mean the actor playing her son? She's fake AF. I'm talking about Erika Kirk there. And thanks, Focus, also for the super sticker for that one. And I think we had 2 super stickers from Focus with generous amounts. Thank you very much. And shout out to Libertarian Social Democrat with this super chat who says, Erika is part Middle Eastern, so I guess JD loves POC. Okay. And shout out to Nicole Archie for being a member on YouTube or becoming a member. Appreciate you joining up there. And thanks for the super sticker, super chat from the Thunder Sound. Who says, have you heard of Pax Silica? Personally, I can't say I have, but thanks for the super sticker. And, in general, if you have things you want to get to Sabrina, there is an email in the description box below each video with a general email address that she tries to keep up with, but she also keep in mind she does get a lot of emails, but there is a contact there. All right. That is, I think, going to do it for us today. You can catch the next live show, should be Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern for our usual live. I hope to catch you all there. And in the meanwhile, keep checking up with 11 Demands. Subscribe to the 11 Demands Substack. You can get to it from that main page for updates and articles on there. And I'm just finding the right thing to click on here. Here we go. In the meanwhile, as Sabrina said, I'll just echo it. Have a good night. Keep up the fight. We'll see you all next time. Thanks.